Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another edition of the brand new Reverse the Verse Live, the only show on Twitch where I deliver a monologue live while my boss, the founder and CEO of this company, sits in a chair only 10 feet away and watches, perhaps judging, wondering if every decision involved in the hiring of me was a mistake. I'm your host, Jared Huckaby. Today on the show, we sit down with the same founder and CEO and game director Chris Roberts to discuss all things Squadron 42 and answer your questions live. But first, the week in review. Last Friday, we had composer for Squadron 42, Jeff Zanelli, on the show. And it was a fun discussion of the variety of challenges and scope of work involved in scoring a video game, especially one as ambitious as Squadron 42. We also highlighted the community-created commercial for the P-72 Archimedes by Alex S189, checked in with Tyler Witkin at the PAX South Bar Citizen in San Antonio, and went behind the scenes of our behind-the-scenes interviews with Chris Smith and Josh Coons. I suppose we'll never know if Mac ever retrieved his phone from up in the ceiling. The lesson here, choose your ringtones carefully, people. Monday saw the first completely backer-sourced, backer-voted question and answer episode of Calling All Devs. The questions backers most wanted answers to this week involved the trading of AUEC to other players, the future of buying ships in the game with that very same AUEC, hotfixes between 3.0 and 3.1, our plan for freelancer variants, and the way we spawn ships in the game. You can find the most current answers to these questions on this week's show. And don't forget to submit new questions for future episodes and vote in the thread up in the announcements section up on Spectrum. Every Tuesday is Lore Day for Star Citizen, and this week's post was a flashback story from the very first episode of Jump Point, Whisperer in the Dark. Now, back when stories like this were first published, they represented the earliest steps taken in uncovering and exploring the universe of Star Citizen, and I couldn't get enough of them back then. Now, you can take your journey back in time and explore the future of Star Citizen right now on the robertspaceindustries.com website. And rounding out the week, yesterday saw the dual releases of both the latest revision of the RSI website and the first Squadron 42-centric episode of Around the Verse for 2018. The website update has been a project in collaboration with our partners at Turbulent and features a streamlined approach for new backers to find the information most valuable in learning about Star Citizen and Squadron 42, with a breakout of game features, a variety of tutorial videos, and the brand new public roadmap that is just our latest in our continuing efforts to help everyone follow the progress of Star Citizen's development. As with everything we do, we will continue to both iterate and refine on everything presented here throughout the year. In Welcome to the Coil, Around the Verse this week introduced us to perhaps the largest and most volumetric, he laughed, character in the upcoming Squadron 42, the Coil, which you first saw in December's Vertical Slice presentation. The Coil is an exciting example of the kind of depth and detail the various teams working on Squadron are putting into every aspect of the game. And I expect to spend a number of hours myself just flying through the twists and turns looking for every tiny detail our artists and designers will embed there. And why will I do this? Because they won't tell me what they're putting in there, that's why. Hashtag spoilers. For Concierge members, voting is still ongoing for Star Citizen's next t-shirt design, with the Idris currently in a commanding lead with a little over half the vote between the three. But it's not too late to swing the tide for that awesome sublimation print Dragonfly shirt, though. Come on, help Disco get his Dragonfly shirt, people. Voting is open until January 31st. And with the reveal of the updated website last night, Concierge members also received their first look at the new Concierge Perks program, with such rewards as a wearable top hat, the gold RSI Executive Venture Armor, and a look at the upcoming F-8C Lightning. Now, it's my understanding a couple of you might have some questions about that. Well, hang tight. I'm certain we can get some information from the chairman of the Chairman's Club himself in just a few minutes. Finally, we've made a new permanent addition to the RSI Pledge Store. The Ursa rover, originally introduced as part of a package with the constellation Aquila, is now permanently available as a standalone item in the store. And joining it in permanent availability is the Dragonfly Black, which is now part of a Loot and Scoot 2-pack with game package for backers who just want one pledge with everything you'll need to play Star Citizen and explore the universe, either in space or down below on the surface of any moon or planet. And with that, we wrap up this week's Week in Review. So we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll be sitting down with Game Director for Squadron 42, Chris Roberts, to answer your questions following yesterday's episode. Stay tuned.
Greetings, citizens. I'm composer Jeff Zanelli. I wrote the music for Squadron 42, and I want to talk to you about something very close to my heart. This is the soundtrack album. And I just want to go over a few highlights. First piece I wrote for Squadron 42 is called Coil Commanders. Actually, my nickname in college. That's where I got that. And I hope you like saxophones. We have another one, Admiral Bishop's Tax Return. You're not going to believe when you find this part in game what's actually going on in this story. It's there's a lot of money laundering subplots and lots of paperwork and stuff in the game, and so I wanted to make sure there was like a paperwork theme, because I know a lot of people care deeply about taxes, tax returns, and Admiral Bishop. So we found a way of combining all of those things. Got another one. We've got Single Player at Night. It's about Jared's love life. Hey. Hope you like saxophones. I do. I hope you like saxophones. Oh, here's a good one. Bagel carrier. 40 seconds of food transportation. Bagel carrier. You're gonna want that. I was thinking really, really hard about what I should name this piece, and I decided on Intense Space Action. Those are the 3 words, the 3 important words. I hope you like saxophones. The other thing, pimp your spaceship. That's right. That's you guys were asking me about space radio. Pimp Your Spaceship is the new hit. Gillian Anderson is in this. I wrote a song about that. Oh, I'm supposed to talk about the F-8 Lightning, I think. Is that right? Oh, right. Sorry. No spoilers. No spoilers. Okay. I mean, I already talked about the tax return. Okay, no, that's okay. Colonel Blair's funeral. Ay. What else can we do? And I hope you like saxophones. Some of you have heard my piece, Vertical Slice. Wait till you hear Horizontal Slice. Oh, that was so bad. So there it is, the Squadron 42 soundtrack. You can buy it in any format you want, as long as it's CD. I'm Jeff Sinelli, composer for Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and I approve this CD.
All right, and we're back with Chris Roberts. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Jared. Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Is this your first time on Reverse the Verse?
It is, I think, on the new Reverse the Verse.
Definitely on the new Reverse the
Not
Verse.
sure if I was on one of the old ones.
I don't remember. All right, so yesterday we had our very first Squadron 42 centric Around the Verse of 2018. This time focused on the coil. Following it, today is our very first Squadron 42 centric episode of Reverse the Verse. So we thought, since it's the very first time we're taking live questions on Squadron 42, we should probably get you, the game director, to come in. Now, we are taking questions from a number of places, guys. You can submit your questions on Twitch chat, where we're broadcasting now. Please preface your question with the word "question" surrounded by brackets. We are also taking questions from Spectrum, which is our bespoke communications platform available on robertspaceindustries.com. Same deal there. Preface your question with the word "question" surrounded in brackets. It's just going to help our friends Tyler Nolan and Tyler Wicken pull them out from all the other conversation. And we had a thread up on Spectrum all week collecting questions for folks who couldn't be here live and letting people vote on them. So we do have a collection of questions that are the most voted on questions, and we saw a couple of interesting threads pop up. The same question coming up quite a bit, and a lot of votes on these things. So I'm hoping we can get to some of these. But right off the bat, the one that jumped to the head of the pack after the last 12 hours is, what's up with the F-8 Lightning? What's to do with the F-8 Lightning, Chris?
Well, I don't think anyone's actually read the concierge booklet. So you don't get the F-8 Lightning until Squadron's out. Our actual idea is there's a few ships that we want to have you play Squadron, and if you get to the point in Squadron that you get to fly them, then you get the badge to be able to get that ship in the persistent universe. So if you're not concierge at a very high level, you'll still be able to get the F-8C. You just will have to have played Squadron far enough along, kind of near the end. It's sort of a little bit like Wing Commander, where you move up in flying different ships as you get a little further on. And if you do that, you'll earn the badge. And I think this probably relates to another question that you have down here. And it will enable you to be able to purchase that in the PU after you've completed Squadron. So the idea is essentially Squadron has to come out, and then it will be available. And then you can either earn it by playing Squadron all the way through, we're as a thank you to some of the people that have really helped us make this game, develop it, really supported it on an incredibly enthusiastic level. We wanted to do a couple of nice things to say thank you, because we wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion. We wouldn't be building the game that we're building, won't build a Squadron to the level that we're building it to without the incredibly enthusiastic support. So, that's kind of the idea of actually the concierge program, is that the people that sort of, really, I don't know whether I say all in, but are more enthusiastic, or everyone should, whether it's you're just getting a basic ship or you're doing a lot more, everything's appreciated, and it's enabling us to do what we're doing, and no one needs to do anything more than the very basic ship. But for the people that sort of go above and beyond, we want to have like a couple of fun things for them, a couple of items that you definitely. It's kind of like a bit more sort of cool and flary, not necessarily something you can only get if you're that, because, like I said, you'll be able to earn the F-8C by completing Squadron and getting to the point where you actually get to fly an F-8A in the game. Exactly.
So that's a good follow-up point there. This is the F-8C that we're talking about, similar to the Hornet F-7C. The F-8 that folks have been wondering about for the last several years is equivalent to the F-7A. It's a military-grade ship that's strictly for Squadron.
So it's not the A like the new F-7A, which if you play Squadron, you'll also get an opportunity to earn the badge for, and then potentially get one of those in the persistent universe. But they have military-grade equipment, which is notch above some of the civilian grade equipment. So the Cs, whether it's the Hornet C or the F-8C, they're still pretty awesome ships, but they don't quite have the sort of higher grade, more durable equipment that the military A version does. That's not to say in the game that you couldn't potentially figure out a way to get one or get the equipment to upgrade your ship to get there, but that's sort of, they don't sell the military grade stuff on the show floor.
Right. And the last question I saw about this, the concierge perks, the things that are being awarded for our Wing Commander and Legatus, are those the opportunity to buy the ship, like completing Squadron 42, or is that actually getting the ship?
No, they get the ship.
They get the ship.
They get the ship.
They get the ship.
At that level, thank you, you can have a ship.
Okay.
So all the items in the concierge setup, starting with the top hat and going through the guns and the suits and stuff, are all rewarded. And in fact, I think if you log in now as a concierge member, you will be, because the website went live, you'll actually get your flare items on your account. And I've even seen some screenshots already where people are in the suit or running around with one of the one of the guns. The monocle at this exact instant isn't supported, but I believe in the patch that we're going to do pre-3.1, where we just want to fix some quality of life issues, the monocle will also be enabled. But you can put a top hat on, I believe, right now.
Yes,
so I'm sure we'll see some pictures of that.
Yes, the current concierge uniform I've seen people adopting is the gold Venture armor with the top hat poking out from the top of it right now. So I've seen a number of people.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to fix some of the rules for what things you can and can't put on with the helmets. I've noticed that people can put a baseball cap and put a helmet on, but yeah, those are logged in our database, and it's part of all the things that we're busily working on fixing.
Yes. All right. So the first question from the live chat also mirrors the top voted question on the thread. So we're going to go right to this. Will Squadron 42 let the player be a female character?
Absolutely. So 100%. They go. I mean, both for Star Citizen and Squadron are female and male. So it's 100% part of our development plan. It's just that in the early stages, the concept is to not have to be revising assets. That we do it with one skeleton, which is the male skeleton at the moment, and then we determine exactly what animations, motion sets we want, because there's still, even though we've done all this performance capture, there's still a lot of stuff where you're working on the AI, for instance, the combat AI, or you're saying, I need an animation to slide into cover a certain way. Oh, well, that one doesn't work. Let's change it to work this way. And so there's a lot of iteration, especially on the sort of combat animations that you do for the players and also the AI. So from our standpoint, we don't want to have two skeletons that then we have to fix up two of the animations. So we work it on one skeleton until we like locked all the animation sets that we know we need for the player and the AI, and then we just make sure that we create the other skeleton's animation set. So we're 100%. So definitely you'll be able to play as a female or as a male. You'll be able to customize how your character looks in Squadron. It will carry across into the PU, so you'll be able to carry your character across from Squadron into the PU, so there you go. Yes.
All right. That's a good lead into the next most voted question. What are our thoughts on the perks that can be transferred from completing Squadron 42 into Star Citizen? And we've already talked about the opportunity for an F7A or an F8.
Yes. So there's definitely, I'll give an example of a couple of things where you do things and you'll sort of earn the badge or the ability in the game, in the PU, to get something that you wouldn't have done without doing that. And that also, there's some, relationships or things that you can do during the story of Squadron that if you do, it will unlock some missions or content, or people that will deal with you or sell you something in the PU. So and we kind of, the idea is the PU sort of is, the Squadron is something that, you did in the past, and the PU is sort of in the present. So it depends. And we track your relationships with various crew members or characters you meet, and some of that will have an impact later on in the PU, like I said, unlocking certain things. So we kind of just want to make it fun. And then, potentially there's also, we've discussed kind of like a veterans association or group that, if you play Squadron, you join that, and then there's potentially opportunities and missions related to that you wouldn't necessarily get if you hadn't played Squadron. Basically, if you hadn't served in the military, then you don't get some opportunities for jobs, but it's kind of up to you. I mean, it's sort of like life, right? It's like, the military guy may not want to join the Merchants Guild and trade and stuff.
I'm picturing the officers club in like Lawrence of Arabia, the kind of thing that you only get when you serve in where the officers.
No, that's 100% what we want to do. So like we want, there will be places for like, UEE service people that they can go. I mean, we're longer term. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of content to build, but our longer term plan, even in like the landing locations, is to have places focused on, like the Merchants Guild, and you go there, you have to be a member of the guild, and it's, the club for like the merchants, and in there you can get specific missions as a member of the Merchants Guild, and the same would be for, UEE, military personnel, potentially subscribers, concierge, like the Chairman's Club for concierge, and I'm not sure if we have a name for the subscribers yet, but it would be kind of nice to build groups, and then we'll allow organizations themselves to maybe own or rent a place that they can make as their sort of org location or hub that essentially only lets in people of that org. So that's kind of one of the sort of overriding goals. And so in the Squadron process, playing the game, we want you to be able to earn various achievements or badges that will have an impact on the PU gameplay.
All right. Here's a question from the live chat here. In the recent monthly report, we saw that the Vandal blade had a bit of a redesign from when its concept was introduced, and in the text they mentioned the entire Vandal fleet has kind of iterated. This person wants to know if that redesign will affect the current glaive or scythe that we have in the game now. Not quite a Squadron-related thing, but with the Vandal.
I think the glaive and the scythe won't be affected that much. I mean, I think we had some early concepts that they were really cool, but they were also not necessarily the most optimal for performance reasons. And one of the passes was to sort of make some of the ships come closer to the way that Nathan Dearsley built the scythe, which is also the glaive, really. And so I would say that we're more bringing things closer to that style, and we're still doing some developmental work on things like the Kingship and stuff like that. So there's a lot, but some of our very early concepts were sort of more kind of bony, ribby, spiky, and so we still have some of those aspects, but not quite as high frequency because that ends up being problematic and yeah, the poly count you need for the ships. And so we'd rather be using things that we can use a lot of our custom normals and some of the kind of detail and POM mapping that we do that gives you this, really great detail. I mean, like, the ships look like they got millions of polys.
Yes, they do.
In a lot of cases, that's because it's really smart use of the detail mapping, POM mapping, and the custom normals.
The next question from the Spectrum thread, where folks voted on which ones they wanted to see us ask, is another one about Squadron 42's effect on Star Citizen. If Squadron 42 will have different endings, and depending on how you end it, will this affect your character in the PU? That's an interesting.
Well, I think it will. I think it potentially will affect your character, as in, what he's earned. I mean, the concept that we have is that as you play Squadron, it sort of fills out your journal. Like, if you imagined you have a journal from back in the time you were serving in the military, and as you go through it, it fills out your journal, and then the things that you've managed to do will sort of unlock some stuff in the PU. And you can always look back on it. It's like your achievement or scrapbook or whatever, and see what is happening, what you did or what you achieved. But we don't really have, yes, we have more than one ending, but generally it's the, you died, you sucked, you got thrown in the brig, whatever, versus you got to the end of the story. So in general, we sort of assume that you will get to the end of the story, but whatever you have in the PU is based on what you've earned today. So it's like your journal hasn't been full, because you could be playing Squadron while playing the PU at the same time, and only be, say, a third of the way through Squadron, and you haven't got to later things and then later things. And so obviously you wouldn't have them in the PU until you got there in Squadron, and then it would unlock things in the PU. So in that way, it will affect kind of things you can get and unlock things, but it's more about your progress through it. So once you get all the way through it and you've done all the things, you'll unlock it. And there are some things you can do that are optional, so you may or may not unlock them or get them later on in the PU.
Okay. Next question. They're already asking about the next one. What are your plans for future chapters of Squadron 40? We're still working on this one. What are the plans for future chapters of Squadron 42 and their tie-in with the persistent universe?
Well, I mean, I think the whole Squadron, it's a sort of it's a trilogy. It's a 3-game arc. Will be before the events will be sort of a little bit before where we're setting the PU. So it will have the same kind of impact that we'll be unlocking new things. So kind of what we would do is we would be doing episode 2 or episode 3. We'll also be adding some opportunity or have content that could be unlocked if you've done that in the PU, sort of like the match of it. I mean, we are actually starting right now the very early stages of, we had an outline of, 1, 2, and 3, and now we're in the process of starting to flesh out 2 and 3, because our goal would be to get 2 and 3 written and then probably shoot all the performance cap back to back. And then once we have episode 1 out and done with all the technology there, 2 and 3 won't necessarily be as long a process, right? Because we've had to build all this technology that didn't exist before. We really want to push it, and so we've been focusing on building tools. But once the tools are in place, 2 and 3 they're not going to happen in overnight, but they will happen a lot quicker than 1 did. I mean, it's very similar to the way, say, Wing Commander 2 was from Wing Commander 1, because it built on all the foundation of Wing Commander 1's code, and then we sort of saw what worked in Wing Commander 1 and said, okay, well, let's push much more of the story, a bit more of a sort of constructed narrative, more relationship stuff, because in Wing Commander 1, you basically talk to the various wing people that you could have, and you sort of decided who you wanted to fly with, and depending on how you did it, sort of in the missions, it affected what the campaign path was, but your relationships with the characters never really developed in the same way that, say, they did in Wing 2, when there was a specific story, there was a trader, you have an opportunity for, a relationship, with Angel, for instance, and that was mostly because we saw what was really working in Wing 1, and we looked back at it and said, well, we could take these elements and really push it. And I kind of suspect that will happen with episode 2 and episode 3 of Squadron.
Next most voted on question: head tracking. Track IR, Toby eye stuff. Will that be implemented for Squadron 42 when it launches?
Well, I'm pretty confident, yes. I mean, we already, I think, have a version of Toby and head tracking working. I don't know whether it kind of, like a lot of times when we go from release to release, someone's got something working but everyone's focused on the new features, so some old stuff kind of rots because it wasn't maintained, and there's so many things to fix that was a lower priority. But yes, I mean, our goal is to have sort of the head tracking, the track IR, Toby. I think we also have done some work and supported, and they have, and also the faceware setup that we have, where the camera can not just track your face, but track where your head's positioned. And it's pretty. I mean, the game's set up for that. I mean, I know people always ask about VR.
That's the next question.
But on the VR front, the game is very much built to be VR friendly because like almost all the UI is diegetic, and the stuff that isn't, we're putting more into being diegetic, and we want to improve the whole diegetic feel. Our biggest holdback on the VR is really just we're still doing so much base level refactoring on the engine and the renderer, and we'll be starting on sort of the Vulkan DX12 kind of refactor as well, and we're doing so much optimization that we sort of feel like we've got to get that done first, and get the base level engine stuff more like finished, not constantly working refactoring, and then we'll put VR, because we had actual VR support quite a while ago, but of course, again, as we change stuff, it breaks, and then your engine team, are they going to go and fix the VR stuff, or are they writing that new like the procedural planet system that everybody can experience? And so that's kind of what's happened in those situations. But once all that stabilizes, of course, yes, we're going to go and get that supported. And when we're building things, we're aware of, like I said, like putting everything in the world itself, which is quite friendly for VR, or and moving your head around and tracking, same thing. It's like we track your head look, and actually I don't think we've turned it on 3.0, but it will be something where you can disconnect your look from your aim as a player. The AI can already do that, because that's also something that's potentially useful, where you're a certain way and you can look around. You don't have to like move your gun to look at it.
Right. Here's a question that's a follow-up to the episode yesterday. Will the coil be in the PU?
The coil will be in the PU. I mean, Odin will be in the PU. I mean, it's not going to be in the PU like right away. I mean, we have to have the jump points to get there, and the systems in between. But it absolutely will be. I mean, that's kind of one of the advantages of we're building things like Squadron, and that's helping build out content that will also be part of the universe. So it definitely will be in the PU, but it will be set after our story.
It'll be Odin years later, so maybe an opportunity to see a little bit of the future of the Odin system.
Yeah, well, you'll definitely see some of the locations that you visit. You just may not, come across some of the people that you come across in Squadron.
Yeah. All right. Another question from the live chat. This is also on the voting here. Will Squadron 42 include a difficulty option where we can pick between easy or impossible gameplay?
Yes, it definitely will. I mean, it's kind of standard. Yeah. Well, it's not going to be too easy though. There you go.
All right. Let's see. A lot of questions about character customization in Squadron 42. I know with the roadmap out yesterday, we saw the first sense of character customization for Star Citizens coming in 3.1. Will it be the same system for Squadron?
It will be the same base underlying technology. I mean, the system, what will be in 3.1 is very basic. It's basically just switching between heads and hair and changing eye and skin color, which is not the final destination for that. I mean, the final one will be full on, you can change, morph the face. So we're still in progress on that side of the technology. It sort of ties into the kind of head rig that we talk about. We have this like real-time head rig, so it allows us to take any like performance and then map it onto any other head. I mean, we can have Gary Oldman driving the Thull, the Vandal Thull, and we've done that to have fun. And it's one of the things that allows us to do the faceware technology and stuff. But so there's still a fair amount of R&D, but the final version of that will absolutely be in Squadron. That's the plan, and you'll also see it in Star Citizen, and it's built in as part of the story. So essentially, what happened? There's a it is part of your journey to end up in a place that you need to choose what your face looks like. Or even your gender. So,
next question is, how will death affect the campaign?
Well, I think death's going to affect the campaign like death affects the campaign in the Wing Commander, which is you die and then you'll have to go back to your last save point, which is not going to be quite as frequent as you would say experience in a Call of Duty or something like that.
Yeah, you're not going to fly 100 kilometers and quick save and fly another 100 kilometers and quick save and saving your way through.
I mean, I somewhere between Demon Souls and a more normal experience. But there needs to be some investment in achieving things. I mean, in the Wing Commander setup, it was always the missions you couldn't save during. The save points were in the sort of interstitials between them, back on the Bengal. I'm not 100% sure we're going to go to that level because, I'm pretty confident we're not, mostly because once we leave and we set on a mission, the way it's structured in Squadron is it's not one thing. It's sort of one thing that turns into another thing that turns into another thing. What we showed on the Christmas live stream was only just a portion of what you would be experiencing at that point in the story. So there's some other optional missions or places you could go check out that we didn't do. And also once you get down there and you free Trejo, there's a whole, it goes on beyond that. You fight your way out, call in the advocacy. The actual, amount of time that you would invest in that, even if you just went and did that one thing, which is the only thing we did, it'd probably be at least 2+ hours, and then you've got the other side missions or quests that would also add time. So I'm not sure we want to be like, have an hour and 50 invested, and then you get killed by the last, slaver, and then you're like, ah! So we'll have opportunities to sort of save at points, but we won't have it every 2 steps or every second, or because I feel like you lose, like people sort of lose the reason to play smart if they do that. Like I certainly do when I play. I mean, I played through Battlefront 2, played through the most recent Call of Duty World War 2, and they look great, but I don't really have. I mean, I just go in, start shooting, and I mess it up. I go, all right, well, I'll try shooting this other way, and I just keep. I mean, I'm just brute forcing it. I'm not stealthing it. I'm not being smart about my ammo counts and stuff like that. So I think we want to balance it a bit more old school as far as that goes.
Okay. Let's see. We're getting a lot of persistent universe questions. Remember, we have a chance to talk about Squadron 42. So Squadron 42 here. We also have. Here's a big one. What part, if any, of Squadron 42 will be cooperative?
Okay, so I know this was an issue from the beginning. Because the Squadron 42 story is as large as it is and has so much performance and is so particularly crafted, we can't do a cooperative story campaign where basically we let a friend of yours play the role of Old Man, which is played by Mark Hamill, because there's definitely things that are happening in the story that rely on other characters to do their thing. Yeah. And if you have another player playing it, they may just decide, well, I'm not going to do that, all right, and then all of a sudden everything's going to break down. So our plan, I mean, if you have Squadron, first of all, you'll have Arena Commander and Star Marine available to you to play with your friends. But also, as we go through the game, we were going to take some of the missions themselves, of the combat, and then kind of have a kind of a multiplayer version of it that you could play with some of your friends, maybe playing some of the other wingmen to achieve the objective that would be unlocked once you've done that in the story. So it wouldn't be for all of them because some of them wouldn't make so much sense, but it would be for sort of the big battle opportunities. So there's some pretty big, bigger battles or set pieces that, there's a fair amount of AI that are fighting alongside you against a bunch of other AI. And in those cases, we could create some
players come in.
drop in, drop out situations for that. It just won't necessarily be tied to the overall, playing it through the story because, it's just
At the level of storytelling,
it'd be hard.
we're attempting,
Yeah, what happens if you, you decide, okay, we've got this big, attack, and here's the good guys and here's the bad guys, and there's 20 people on each side, but you make those 20 players on each side, and that battle may not end up the way that you want it to or need it to for the story. Whereas if we've got you playing it with a bunch of other AI, we can sort of control or balance that better.
Okay. Let's see. We have a note here. The majority, this is not Squadron 42 related, but I'm told that I have to ask you this. A majority of the website is new now. What about sections that have been untouched, like the store? Are there plans to revamp that throughout the rest of the year?
Yeah. I think the newsletter is going to come out today that will basically say that. But yeah, so what the website that we just launched is just stage one. So and really that was sort of focusing on separating out Star Citizen and Squadron, and then the community, which is basically the RSI side and the store, just to, because if, the old website, if you went to it and you're like, okay, I've heard about this Star Citizen, and it's like there's just information overload. How do I get the game? Where do I go? What's the game about? It's not very obvious for the site. So, the site that we've rolled out, we feel like does a better job of that. I mean, I did notice people commenting, going, "Oh, it just seems the same," or "This isn't." But that's mostly because the site's also smart. So if you've already got an account or you're already logged in, it's taking you to the default places that you normally go, like the community section, which of course haven't changed much, right? They've become a little less cluttered because we moved some of the elements of the Star Citizen Squadron stuff's being moved to its own parts, but it hasn't changed, or the store hasn't really changed either. And those are things that so we wanted to get the sort of hey, the Star Citizen thing seems cool, or I want to get into it. And so we sort of focused on that the beginning, not so much the later store experience of, oh well, now I want to upgrade my ship, or it's more just like, hey, I heard about Star Citizen, can I give you $40 to become part of it? And so that was what the focus was for the current site, and also making Squadron and Star Citizen so it wasn't so confusing that you understood, okay, this is single player game, this is the massively multiplayer online game, and explaining it and having some tutorials, because although previously most of the stuff was our fans, basically our fans do a great job of educating and showing, and all the streamers do the same thing, which is awesome, so don't stop doing that.
Please.
But we felt like we should do it better. So it's the first step, but we are absolutely going to be working on the subscriber side. The concierge side had a bit of a revamp, which is kind of cool. Subscriber side, the store needs a lot of work. And then just sort of the community development section, again, we're going to work on that. It just takes time, and we'd rather roll out bits as we go along. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming.
Hey, I asked him. It's just kind of necessary. All right, back to Squadron 42. We just released a public roadmap for Star Citizen. Will there be a roadmap for Squadron 42 at some point in the future?
There will be at some point in the future. So, Squadron's a little different because we're not doing our quarterly releases, but I still want to. But we are managing exactly the same way. So the thing that's really cool about the roadmap, and I know I saw some discussion where people were like, "Hey, well, what about this? And what about this?" And but don't worry, there's a lot of it still needs to.
We're still working on the Hull C, guys.
But the Hull C is definitely the only reason why it actually wasn't put in as a task there was because there is a technical issue with the interior grids, because the Hull C contracts and expands, and we're 100%. It's the art's finished. It's going to be in the game, but the bit where we were contracting and expanding the interior grid, which isn't like we don't know how to do it, or it's a year task or anything. It's not at all. just doesn't have a resource currently assigned to do that, and so they didn't want to expose that epic on the roadmap until they had that and then it was done. So that's kind of what's happening right now, is that we've sort of switched our development methodology to be much, especially on Star Citizen, to be sort of more data-driven, but we've also switched how we're running the teams internally to be much more sort of agile team-based. So before we were more pipeline-based, the programmers had a list of all the things they were working on, the designers had a list of things they were working on, the artists had, and we still have some pipeline aspects like the ships, weapons, characters are pretty much a pipeline. But in terms of feature development, we've changed it around. So we're building agile teams where you have the engineer and the designer and the artist that will be helping and supporting that, all sort of embedded together, working on the feature. And that is it's fairly different than how we were doing it previously, where a lot of it was, the engineer was given, we had a TDD, here's the tasks we need from engineering, they would go and work it, here's the things design needs to do once to get the engineering, here's the thing we need from the artist, and there would, there's communication and friction that happens in that. So this is much more about having the sort of kind of small team agile style working. So, but that does mean that we have to, we change how we're utilizing Jira, which is our project management task tool that we use, from sort of a more, a bit set up more like a pipeline, especially for the engineering design, to more of the sort of team task user story based, which is where we're going to. Now we did a little bit of it last year towards the end, but now we're doing it across, it's going to be exactly the same for every single studio across the company. And everyone's fully on board with that. We have all our senior production right now over in the UK. I think they'll be in Germany next week, working and finishing these out. And the idea is that we because we're updating the roadmap like we did for 3.0 every Friday was always just a big song and dance, because we had things in Jira, but we were displaying them this other way, and then there was the longer term roadmap had so much stuff in it that the production was so busy doing other stuff they didn't really have a time to maintain it, so it totally got out of date. So they were updating the stuff that was for 3.0 but not later, and it just was a lot of extra work. So we decided we wanted to essentially expose our project management software, the Jira stuff, to the website. So Turbulent built that whole roadmap tool. It basically takes it via the Jira roadmap, and we have settings inside our epics that we can say this is a public epic, and then we can put user-facing descriptions, and we can even add user pictures. So production, development can just, when they set up the epic that they're working on, they can set it up also for the public-facing, and it scrubs automatically into it. So the advantage of that is we don't have to manually update anything, because there's lots of mistakes when you're manually updating stuff. So everything will just reflect the state of the tool that we're using to manage everyone across the company. Of course, we're not showing every single task because there's thousands of tasks and the information is overwhelming. So we sort of show the very high level, what you would call an epic, or in some cases sort of a saga, which is overwhelming over quite a few epics. I know they have all these sorts of epics, sagas, stories, tasks. So
Joseph Campbell designed Jira.
So we expose those, and we mark which ones are public facing. We wanted to get the roadmap in people's hands, which is why we went live with it here. But they still have organization work to do, because they've got to take the way Jira was set up before. Some of it's been done, not all of it's been done. So they have to change it around because they've got to organize it under the right epics and everything. So in the case where they don't feel comfortable that they don't have it organized properly and there's duplicate tasks, because sometimes there were tasks set up from before, but now we're setting it up on this new one. So in those cases, they just choose not to show that epic publicly until they have it in shape. And so you'll see that roadmap will get more things added to it. Of course, things also will move around a little bit as maybe a bit more information comes to light, or how it's going. But that's the beauty of it. It's going to be 100% live reflection of the tool that we use to manage all the tombs. And we're using exactly the same process on Squadron 42, which is going to get me to the end, to answer the original question, which is, are you going to get the roadmap like that?
The original question.
And yes.
What are we talking about?
And yes, we will. If you look on the side, there's a Star Citizen logo. There will be a Squadron 42 logo. You get the roadmap. So once we have the Squadron 42 tasks and epics all cleaned up and ready to go, then we will also turn that on and share it. It may not be done on a quarterly. It may be done on a monthly. I'm not quite sure. We're still discussing kind of the column format for it. But it will, again, scrub live from all the tasks that we have and epics and sagas that we have entered for finishing out Squadron 42.
All right, let's try to get a couple more Squadron 42 questions in before we have to let you go. Be careful when you answer this so John Schimmel doesn't kill me. Will we see any other big name actors in Squadron 42 that are not announced yet? Just say yes or no, don't.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, John Schimmel's right there. I could feel it. All right. Next question from the live chat. Is Squadron turning out how you expected it to in 2012?
No, I mean, it's so much bigger and cooler and better. I mean, I had some ideas about how to sort of up the emotional attachment and the story aspects of it, and I wanted to put you sort of first person, and I felt like the technology had moved a little where you could have better looking characters, and so it didn't need to be sort of the old Wing Commander, like Wing 3 or Wing 4, where we filmed actors because we didn't feel like we could get performance into the rudimentary animation for the characters aboard the ship, which is what we had in Wing 1 and 2. But it's way, in terms of scope, scale, what we can do, because there's a lot of technology, like the procedural planet stuff we saw. We went down to Gaini, which is this moon that used to be a moon of Odin 1, which is, Odin 1 is now really the coil. So the opportunity, and like when I was first conceiving it, we were, even when we were writing the script for it, we were thinking we were going to have to sort of hide basically level loads behind cinematics and stuff that you would stream when we do it. And this is all, it all plays live in the engine seamlessly. And I think in terms of like emotional attachment and story that you're going to have in the game, it's going to be, I think it's going to have an effect on people that they're not going to expect. So we spend so much time creating, sort of arcs and stories for all the characters you come across. So you see a little bit like, so for instance, one of the scenes in the holiday live stream I really like is the moment where you talk to, Liam Cunningham's character, Captain White, and he's asked you how you're doing, and it gets to on his son, and you can see the performance. That's a great actor, and he's there, and you can sort of see, there's something on, there's not
something happened.
And it's like, there's a regret, and there's a sadness, and there's, it makes him feel real. He's not just the captain that gives you a mission, and we have that across the board for the crew of the Stanton and a lot of other characters that you'll meet through the course of the story. And you don't necessarily have to engage in these. So the concept is, as a player, you play the game and you sort of interact with people that you want to interact with. There may be certain players will prefer to interact with certain characters than another player would want to interact with, and that's actually kind of interesting, because that was the Wing Commander 1 thing. I was always interested that, like, some people loved Maniac and some people hated him, right? It was like, it's very polarizing, but that was player agency and choice, and they just, because they made the choice, there was this extra attachment to it. And in Squadron, we've really, everybody has, there's these personal stories and character arcs that aren't necessarily related to the actual story itself that you're going to go on, but as you spend time and interact with these characters, I really feel like they're not going to just feel like, oh, this is an AI character. You're gonna sort of see them as people, and then, of course, the story of Squadron, it wouldn't be very interesting unless stuff happened. So there's some pretty, momentous or tragic stuff that would happen, and it obviously will have effect on characters that you've met and hopefully built an affinity for a relationship with. And so I actually think your emotional attachment as you go through the story, is going to be of a level that maybe has not happened yet in games, or happens very rarely in games, and that will just mean that what you're doing and what the action will mean that much more. So I can feel little bits of it now, and I can see it, and I know all our scenes and stories, and when we finish off at the level that we're doing, I think it's going to be really cool, and it's sort of a subtle thing, but I'm really interested to see how that ends up affecting people.
Come at us, other video games. Come at us. You mentioned going down to gainy in the vertical slice. One of the things that may have surprised a lot of people was the FPS combat in Squadron 42, because based on your previous game of Wing Commander and stuff like that, technology restricted us to only ever being inside the cockpit. Can we expect first-person combat throughout Squadron 42, or is that a special one-off thing?
No. It's throughout. So I mean, I've always wanted to have a game that is basically from your point of view, whether you're on a ship, you're flying, you're flying your ship, like you're on the Bengal in case of Wing Commander, or you're flying your Hornet. But I also wanted you to be able to be down on the ground, running around in first person, having a fight. And so that's been a dream for a long time. A few members of our team a long time ago, I forget the name of it, something Bounty Hunter, they did it after they did Star Lancer. That was the idea with it. It wasn't a Squadron or Wing Commander style story. So I've always wanted to do that. So even, and if I did another Wing Commander, I would do it this way from a total first person point of view. And so for me, I just want it to be a fluid story and experience. I mean, it's like, you watch Star Wars, Luke Skywalker isn't flying his X-Wing all the time. Yeah. He's doing plenty of other stuff, running around on foot, having adventures. So the idea that we want is a completely fluid adventure that, depends on the situation and what you have to achieve. You could be doing it flying a ship, you can be doing it on foot, you can be doing it in zero-G, in EVA, and you can be spending time, in your off hours getting to know the crew. And so there's definitely, I would say, there's, plenty of ship combat and there is plenty of FPS, and, whether, I would 50-50 maybe. I mean, there's a lot. So it's very fluid, and there'll be plenty of cases where you'll be in a ship and then you'll have to get out, and you'll, be on foot fighting and then get back into your ship and do their stuff. And so I think it's going to be fun.
It's a first-person universe.
First-person universe.
All right. We're almost out of time. We do have a large worldwide backer community. One of the most voted on questions was, will Squadron 42 be available in other languages besides English?
Yes, no, most definitely. So they do. I mean, my past Wing Commanders, we always translated. So we're building infrastructure in for subtitles and full vocal, full audio sort of translations. And it's going to. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on exactly all the languages we do. I mean, in the past,
a little bit early.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, there's the standard sort of what they call EFIGs, which is, let's see, English, French,
Italian,
German, Spanish.
EFIGs.
Yeah, that's kind of industry, like EA would say, okay, we're going to, EFIGs. So I'm not sure of which one. So they probably all would be translated. So you don't necessarily do all of them. The full, because the one that takes the most amount of time and is the most expensive is the one that is the full, it's not just subtitles, it's sound and everything. But that would likely to be French, German, Spanish, and then I don't know about Italian on that one, depends. So it's a lot more you in Italy than perhaps, you never know. But yeah, the infrastructure's there to do it, so we're definitely going to do it. But again, that's the sort of thing you do right at the end once everything's kind of locked, because you don't want to be translating stuff that may get cut or gets changed.
All right. We talked a lot about the first person here. In cutscenes, can we see our character speak, or will in third person, or will we be restricted only to first person for cutscenes?
We haven't decided yet. is the simple answer. So we captured Ian Duncan, who played the player, in all his scenes. So all his facial and body was captured as he was talking. And in fact, even for when we showed the IGN trailer, we internally created a third person and a first person version of it. I opted for the first person because it felt more immersive and immediate. But we've long had the concept of potentially a sort of key that lets you pop out and get more third person setup. I mean, we've been experimenting with, even in the first person conversations, having the option of sort of changing the camera angles a bit more cinematic. So one of the things we had in the vertical slice is we had these sort of cinematic cutaways, but maybe what wasn't fully obvious to people was that that's all happening A, in real time, B, your characters there in real time. So we didn't show you, but you could see you could go to the cinematic cutaways in, say, the White talking to Wexler in the briefing, and you could have your character walk photobomb in the back and walk back. And sometimes QA had done that, but the concept is really that you have the cinematic cutaways, and you can basically hit a key to just go back to your point of view. So it's sort of up to you. You can sort of cancel. You can just experience even that scene. There's Ben Mendelsohn and Liam Cunningham, both great actors. So it's I want to see them up close. I want to see because if I'm looking at it from my point of view when I've entered the briefing room, I'm not going to see all the detail or all the performance. And so we want the opportunity. So we're going to build a system. So what we've been playing with is building a system that sort of has this sort of cinematic enhancement mode where it will cut in there, but if you don't want to deal with it, you just hit a key and you're at your point of view and you can see the scene playing out. And and they're all real-time running AI, so if you move over there and break it up, they'll react to you and do that sort of stuff.
You walk away from Liam Cunningham is just trying to give you your mission briefing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what we're going to do in the case of you're in the military, so if you're a bit too disobedient, you end up. So we have you in the brig, on various different situations, which is where you'll end up if you're basically trying to trawl the characters in Squadron.
You're saying I'm never going to finish Squadron 42.
Yeah, you may be in the brig a lot.
All right. Well, Chris, that's it. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on your show, Jared.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me have the show.
That's good. And hopefully everyone out there, some of my answers were informative and helpful. And thank you guys very much for supporting. I mean, I'm having a great time making Squadron and Star Citizen. And, I think we're doing something really special. So thank you all very much.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the wrap-up. See you in a bit, guys. All right, well, that was one very persistent Starfarer. With that, that, this week's episode of Reverse the Verse comes to a close. A special thanks to my boss, Chris Roberts, for putting up with me for the last hour, and some housekeeping before we let you go. If you haven't checked it out yet, take a look at the new public roadmap available on the RSI website. It's got all kinds of neat information, including which ships and tempo features are scheduled to be worked on throughout the remainder of 2018. There are also restocked t-shirts available in the store, including a brand new Star Citizen See You in the Verse option that I myself just picked up last night. And on Monday, we've got another episode of Calling All Devs where we take your questions about group missions, medical gameplay, and the future of the Voyager Direct store. I know you're going to be very interested in this one. So for Reverse the Verse, I'm Jared Huckaby. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.